It's not uncommon that when someone is looking for an all-natural soap product that's gentle and simple, they appreciate the idea that less is more. With this Bastille recipe made with goat's milk and chamomile, you can combine a creamy luxury soap bar completely around a minimalist natural recipe. By definition, a Bastille bar is any soap made with 70% olive oil and a mixture of 30% other oils. And since olive oil is known for being so gentle, it's often made in baby soaps. In this recipe, we call it our baby Bastille. It consists of 70% olive oil and 30% coconut oil, rich creamy goat's milk, and dried chamomile flowers that are slow cooked and infused into one bar, creating a moisturizing, gentle bar with just a hint of a light, sweet fragrance. This recipe is especially pleasing to those who want the most natural product possible because there's no additional colorant, no fragrance oil or essential oils, and the light, sweet smell in this bar is just the lingering aroma of sweet oils and flower petals. It smells almost like a warm cup of sleepy time tea. Now in this recipe, we'll be giving you our full recipe for this Bastille bar. And if you want more videos like this, then hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe, and we'll be making more so that you can catch the next one tomorrow. This recipe makes 3 pounds of soaps, and that will cut into 11 pieces at 4.5 ounces a piece after cure time. So in order to get our 3 pounds of oils into the crock pot, we'll need 33.6 ounces of olive oil and 14.4 ounces of coconut oil. Allow that to melt, and we're going to add our lye water solution, which is 6.83 ounces of lye and 18.24 ounces of water. As you can see here, I'm combining my lye water solution in with my oils. In this recipe, we don't need to allow the lye water solution to cool down to room temperature since the oils are already warming up in the crock pot. But we do need to make sure that when we add the lye water solution, it's within 20 degrees of the temperature of the oils in the crock pot. And then that way the lye water and the molecules in the oils won't shock each other and they'll combine more easily. Once you've added your lye water solution, mix this evenly with the stick blender and just mix it until it's well emulsified. In this video, you can get a good image of that glassy sheen that was on the top, and that tells us we need to keep mixing until that glassy sheen goes away so that we know that our oils and our water solution is mixed well. Now in some recipes, we add the flowers toward the end, toward the 3rd stage of soap processing, and that's so that we don't lose the vibrance of the colors. But in this recipe, this is one of my only recipes where I put the flowers in at the very beginning of the cooking stage, because we really want to infuse these chamomile flowers into the soap. So as you can see here, I've just mixed the soap up. It hasn't even started cooking. It's only just warmed up in the crock pot. And I've put a good solid 1 full cup of chamomile sort of dust and dried flowers into this soap. And we want this to cook and break down as it goes through all 3 stages of the hot process method. And for me, that's how I get that really good, light, sweet chamomile flower smell in the soap, and it's completely infused by the time we finish our project. I'll put the cover on this, leave it alone, and come back in about 25 minutes. On our first check back, we see we're somewhere between the 1st and the 2nd stage of that slow cook process. And the only thing we need to do is keep an eye on it to make sure it's not expanding out of the pot and mix everything back together. If your oils and your water are starting to separate, and just mix it all back together. Try to pull what's from the bottom up to the top so that it cooks evenly all the way through, and then try to get what's on the sides and fold that into the center. That's really all we need to do. And we'll cover it up and come back again in another 30 minutes. Now on our next check, you'll start to notice that we're somewhere between the 2nd stage moving into the 3rd stage of that change in texture. The very top of the recipe looks like it's starting to gel and it's becoming glassy and jelly-like, while when I flip it over, we're still clearly into that light fluffy applesauce stage at the bottom. So we need to mix this up again, let it cook evenly all the way through, and then leave it alone for another 30-35 minutes. Now we've had the heat on this soap for about 2 hours, and we're going to come back and check it all together, mix it up, and this is right about the consistency that I want it to be at. Now it's still going to cook while it's in the pot, but we want to remove the heat, and the best way that we can do this at the moment is to just lift the pot, the glass dish, out of the crock pot and get the heating element out of the way so we can start working on the cooling down process. By continuing to mix it, this helps us release the heat so the soap can cool down so that we can add our goat's milk, and also it helps keep an eye on it and monitor it, that it's not becoming too stiff, so we still have time to work with it before we transfer it into the mold. And now what we need to do is add in our goat's milk and incorporate it completely into the mixture. Now we haven't cooked the goat's milk into the bar. What we're going to let it do is we're going to let it infuse into the bar just by mixing it as it's cooling. And then as the bar is curing, that water in the goat's milk will also evaporate over time, and it will leave that creamy, moisturizing goat's milk and the fat globules that help contribute to the qualities of the goat's milk, and of course the lactic acid and all of the great properties that the milk has that people want. That will be left floating in the bar. So the lye hasn't really eaten it up. We've done this at the end of that saponification process for this reason. Now I'm using powdered goat's milk. I use 2 scoops of goat's milk per about 3 ounces of liquid water, which is not how you would make it if you were actually making yourself a glass of goat's milk to drink. That's not how the directions follow. But we don't want to keep adding more liquid to this soap. We just want to get it to a creamy, smooth slurry so that we can get it completely incorporated. If you were using non-powdered goat's milk, say you have your own goats or you purchase it at the store, then 2 scoops equals 1 cup. So you would in fact either incorporate 1 cup of liquid goat's milk in at that stage, or you could have done it previously by replacing some of the water when you made your lye solution in the beginning, which is a completely different step, and I can show that as a demonstration in another recipe in the future. But I prefer personally to put the goat's milk in at the end to save the integrity of the goat's milk, so you actually ensure that it shows up in your bar and you have that creamy luxury property that people are looking for when they're asking for goat's milk. It's also worth mentioning that anytime I add powdered goat's milk at the end of my recipe, I always wait until the soap has cooled to below 150 degrees. And we do this so that the milk itself doesn't burn as it's being incorporated into the bar. That can happen very quickly, and you smell it if it's starting to burn. It smells like scorched milk, and it will turn physically brown on you. Now the trouble with scorched milk is that it will interfere with whatever fragrance you're trying to work with, and especially if you are trying to create an all-natural bar with a very light or no fragrance at all, you will smell that scorched milk all the way through your loaf, through all of your bars, and even through the curing process. So you want to avoid burning your milk. And we'll finally top off our loaf with some decorative chamomile buds. And you can dust these off or skip this if you're actually making the soap for babies and you don't want any abrasive, scratchy parts at the top. When you've cooked the flowers in from the very beginning stages, it may look like a natural granule-like texture on the inside, but in fact it's very soft, and this is not very scratchy or exfoliating in the way that it feels like an abrasive loofah. The flower petals are actually very much infused into the bar itself. Now, since this is a hot process method, our soap is good to use within 24 hours and as soon as we've cut it. But that's really not the same as curing. Olive oil soaps take kind of a long time to cure, and if you want this to cure, meaning that the water will evaporate out of it and it will be hardened and it will last much longer than if you were to use it right now, then you'd set this up and allow for a solid 4 to 6 weeks to cure, just like you would if it were a cold process soap. So although it's safe to use, and you can use it, if you want to get the best quality use out of this bar, you'll set it aside to cure and wait for that water to evaporate so the bar becomes more solid. Hope you enjoyed the recipe and watching us make our baby Bastille soap bar. If you'd like to print out this recipe and keep a copy for yourself, you're welcome to pop on over to thermalmermaid.com, where we have an entire recipe directory and you can download and print out all of the recipes that we make at Thermal Mermaid.